Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. Wanted to bring you a fun little interactive card this week, and I'm going to make a couple of changes. I had these candle holders, so the mirror ended up being off center, and it's driving me crazy, so we're going to change that. But if you have a reusable tea light, and by reusable, I mean like battery operated. I mean, all candles are reusable, right? You just stick it in behind there and it looks like a real fire. It is adorable, and I know it won't show well at this angle, which is why I held it up. But if you have it sitting on a surface, I'll hold it up so that it kind of shows you how it would look. It looks wonderful in evening light. Right now it is like the middle of the morning, so it could not be brighter in here. And also I'm so sad. I just ruined my grid mat. If you remember this, all my videos have had this nice black background. I thought I had gotten something on it, but it turned out that it was wiping all the ink off. So that boy's retiring. So sad. So now we're just going to have a clear white desktop. Hopefully there's no glare, but I am using 2 stamp sets and a punch. We're using a couple of things. So the main star is the Fireside Trimmings bundle. This is in the holiday catalog and I love it. Love, 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 love it. And then we're using a sentiment from Peaceful Moments. So these are the moments we'll look back on with joy. I mean, it's a gorgeous fireside image, right? So how many of us remember a nice fireside chat? And then we are using, now I've gone ahead and done a bunch of the die cutting, so this doesn't take us hours, but I used 2 dies from the Celebrate Sunflowers bundle. So those are our little plants in the vase. And then I wanted to show you this. I'm not making this one, but this was one that I made for a different project a couple of months ago. And while I would love to do the brick background on this, it's just not possible. And you will see when we start to score that we just can't do it. We would end up having it go onto the inside of the card, and unless you want to do separate panels, it just won't work as this one piece. But I wanted to show you this. This uses the In the Woods tree. Isn't it just cute? Now, there is a lot of work to using this set, so I understand why many people wouldn't be keen on this one, but let me show you. It's really not as bad as you might think. You can die cut it or you can stamp it. The only thing that isn't included in the stamps is the actual fire. And I mean, we can all die cut a little bit of fire, right? So let's get to this. Now that I've spread all this out, we need to start with a piece of Whisper White Thick. If you'd like to use a different color, by all means, just keep in mind that we are doing some actual stamping right onto the background here. So I'm going to start with a piece of Whisper White Thick. And we're going to trim it down to 5.5. So it's 8.5 by 5.5, which is one of our standard card bases. So this would be considered a top fold card, but we don't want to do our score at the 4.25 inch mark quite yet. So what we are going to do is on the sides, we are going to line it up at 1 inch. And then we're going to take our trimmer, and I find it easier to stand up for this part because you won't be able to see exactly where your blade is. Even with the camera above, it can be hard to see. So if you are familiar with the Stampin' trimmer, it's got the measurements along the top and the side. So right now I'm at the 1 inch mark. I'm going to cut all the way down to 5.25. And there is a little line on either side of this that shows me where to stop cutting. So now I'm going to take it to this side and do the same cut. So just lock that in place, locate my 1 inch mark, and trust me when I say my camera is right in the way. So 1 to 5.25. So that is our cutting. The rest is going to be scoring. So now I am going to score at the 1-inch mark, and I always find it easier to go on this side, not this side. So I'm going to score from the outside to that 1-inch score line on both ends. And then I'm going to turn it around and move it to the 2-inch mark, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do that 1-inch score. And then at the 5 1/4 inch mark, we're going to do the same thing. So we're just scoring to that cut line. And then at 4 1/4, which would be our standard score, we're going to score just on the inside. So between those cut lines. Everything else was on the outside. Okay, so now we can take this, we can fold and burnish that part. We can actually move our trimmer right out of the way. And now we can, and I would highly recommend using a bone folder to do this. You'll get a much crisper look. I'm just using my thumbs for now. I will go over it because you want nice sharp creases. And then once you get that all folded, it will lie flat. There we go, a nice crisp, clean fun fold. Who doesn't love a good fun fold? So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it back up, and with that fireplace stamp, I have seen some people do it this way, and it's upside down. So you would have your mantle at the top. I think the thing that throws it off is there's no real hearth on this stamp. But what we're going to do is using gray granite, and I did not get a very good inking the first time that I did this, so I had to go in with my Stampin' Up marker and do some couple fixes. So I'm going to go fairly close to the bottom and stamp it and hold it for a few seconds. Give all that ink a chance to transfer to the cardstock. Perfect. The first time I was missing a whole bunch over there. And we can just start building our scene. So I'm not going to keep this all in real time because, I mean, I've already done so much of the prep. It would be like watching ink dry. I've lost all my pieces. Now, one of the first things we are going to do, and please don't be afraid of this set. There are a lot of dies, but it's because it cuts out everything. We are going to cut out that little panel on the inside because that's where our little piece of vellum is going to go to show through to the tea light. So I've already gone ahead and die cut all my pieces. I've got a little banner. I've used the plaid tidings DSP for that. Used some silver foil for the mirror. Some soft suede for the frame. I used So Saffron for those Celebrate Sunflowers wheat sheaves. And the only thing we need to do here is die cut that, and then we'll add in our pumpkins and candles, and we're on our way. So when you're die cutting this part, you can take it right down to the bottom. I tend to go towards the top because I want to have some space to put my little wood log, which I haven't stamped and die cut. And yeah, I want to have that little bit of a base. So I'm just taking this to my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'm hoping that with this new background, it's going to stay put while I do that. If you would like, use a little bit of washi tape or purple tape. I get this from Amazon. Actually, one of my lovely friends sent me this. Now, the magnetic plate is available for the new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I have not gotten it myself, so I will be getting that. But the major difference between the old magnetic plate and this new one is that the magnet goes all the way through the plate. On the old one, there were little dots spread out. And if your die wasn't exactly where one of those dots was, it would jump. With the new one, they cover the entire surface, and there's no more of that jumping, from what I understand. Okay, so we are off to the races. So I'm going to lay everything out where I want it to be, and then we'll start stamping. So I want my mirror front and center this time. Drove me crazy that it was off. Now, before we start stamping, let's get this ready to go, because this we're going to use a tiny bit of glue for. And I find when I apply adhesive to the foil, it has a tendency to move. So we're just going to add a little bit to this frame. And I think on this frame, it would be really cute to add if you embossed it with the pine wood planks to give it that wooden texture. But it does already have a bit of a pattern in it from the die cut. And it shows you exactly where to lay it so that they will fit seamlessly. I want to put a block on that and let it sit just for a few minutes. And we'll have to do a little bit of trimming on this just because they'll be too tall if we don't, and the leaves will stick out of the side of the vase, and no one wants that. So let's put our little, you do need to figure out where these are going to go before you stamp your candles. And there are die cuts for the candles if you want to stamp them and die cut them, but we are just going to leave it as stamped right on the card base. So I'm going to place this here because that kind of gives me an idea of how big my mirror is. I could put the die there as well. Having our candles separately is that I'm going to have to mask one, and that's fine. We can just use a little post-it or a piece of tape. We'll mask one, stamp it, mask the other, stamp it, and Bob's our uncle. So I think I'm going to take all this off and start actually building it now, because other than those candles, our stamping is done. So I'm going to take just a little bit of liquid glue and put it around that opening for our vellum. And this is 1 by, I'm going to say 2, 1 3/4. As long as your vellum is bigger than your opening, that's all that matters. Okay, so now we're gonna fold it and we can start layering. So I like to put my little log here first and then build the flames in behind. So I just put glue on the bottom part and I adhere this to that little piece that I left on the inside. Basically, it would be the fireplace insert. I've got all my flames. I use pumpkin pie, Cajun craze, and so saffron. I want my pumpkin pie front and center. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the bottom. I kind of like that it can move. I'm going to lift that up just a little bit. So it's not adhered on the top. Not that it's actually going to move. It's not going to blow in the wind, but it's not glued all the way. I like that it looks a little more organic that way. So we're just going to tuck all these pieces in, and you may want to start from the back and work your way forward, but I like to start at the front and work my way back. You do you. So now what we can do is, this is the Plaid Tidings DSP. What I actually did, I'm using the Vase Builder punch. And when I first made this, I had cut on the wrong side. I cut at the bottom instead of the side. So I'm just using a little bit of the scrap Whisper White Thick to punch another vase, another 2 vases, to have some backing on there. 1, to cover the plaid paper on the back, and 2, to give it a little bit more stability. So I'm using this nice tall vase. Hanging a little low. It's definitely a fire hazard in this one. You could cut off those ends and have it a little bit higher if you wanted. So now let's do our little candles. I've just got a post-it note here and I'm going to stick it to my block and ink up the one candle. Remember to take that mask off. Ink it up one more time. And this is the smaller candelabra. So let's lay it down where we want it to be. Give this a huff to make sure that it's still ready to go. And you can move that out of your way and just kind of eyeball where it's going to go. Now that I've done it this way, I would recommend opening it because you're stamping over that little seam there. Don't adhere it yet because we are going to be coloring those candles. And now we'll clean this off and we're going to mask the small one this time. Take that off, put your little candelabra or candle holder down. And now if it didn't go exactly where you wanted it to, you can move your candle holders to where they need to be. So for coloring, which I think is pretty much all we have left, I chose to go with watercolor pencils because this is a one-layer card. I don't want to use Stampin' Blends and have it go through to the other side. So I used Pumpkin Pie and Daffodil Delight for the pumpkins, and then Old Olive for the stem. You could use Early Espresso if you wanted. And then for the candelabras, I used Rich Razzleberry, and the clock I used Early Espresso and Cajun Craze. I think that's it. So we'll just do a little bit of coloring, glue on those candle holders, do our sentiment, and we're done. Okay, so let's put on our little candle holders so that we don't have levitating candles as well as pumpkins. So just line that up with your stamped candle. Try and have it at the same floor height as your vase. I mean, we don't have to be entirely realistic, but I don't know about you, but I actually prefer these little candle holders die cut instead of stamped. They are pretty though if you color them with, like if you left them white and colored them with a little bit of gold, that would look cute too. Okay, so all that's left, got a little bit of adhesive back here, I'm not sure how. So that is the front of the card. Our beautiful scene. So on the inside, we're going to use that stamp from Peaceful Moments. And what I did the first time was I inked it up using Gray Granite and Rich Razzleberry, which are two of those main colors on the front. And I just did marker to stamp technique. So just go over all of the serif font, and you'll see what I mean in a second here. Okay, so go over all those with Gray Granite, and then for the words moments and joy, go over those with Rich Razzleberry. And you want to keep your marker perpendicular. If you go any other way, you're going to get ink where you don't want it. Then when you've got that color, give it a huff or a hot breath. Now mine is just a tiny bit crooked, so I'm trying to remember that and ink it or place it down straight. Doesn't always work, but there you go. And if you want to avoid that, the two colors, just use whatever color you'd like. But that is our card. And then we pop that little tea light in there, and isn't it gorgeous? So I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you make one of these for yourself, I would love to see it. You can tag me at StampedAF on Facebook or Instagram. You can email me at stampedaf@gmail.com. And that's all for this week, my crafty friends. I hope you enjoyed. And if this was your first time here, please consider hitting that subscribe button below. And we will see you soon. Bye.